microphone slightly quieter so you can all calm and hear about the work that Tanya's doing with humanitarian aid between Edinburgh, where we are just now, and with Ukraine. And we'll find out what the reality is. We all see the news, obviously, but it's good to hear from people who really know what's happening. And as well as Tanya, we have Dr. Professor, actually, promoted, 10 years, you see, you get promoted. Professor McEwan, who is going to help lead the question and answer session. And I'll go up the back now because there's no danger from anyone popping in, so that's okay, I'll walk around. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. We're good to go? Okay, well, can give the introductions. Just to sort of put it in context, yes, I am Professor McEwan, but I specialise in war and conflict studies. That's my area of interest. Prior to that, I had what I would call a real life before I became an academic. I was a trauma nurse, and I worked in emergency and disaster, conflict zones and humanitarian aid. So this is in many ways a subject close to my heart. It's like I've in many ways been there before in situations which are difficult. I know the pressures and the concerns that are brought to bring on people in times of crisis and in times of conflict. So today we just want to, having had all the lovely singing and dancing and kind of got in the mood, we're going to kind of sort of dampen the mood a little bit, I'm sorry to say, but maybe not, by discussing the enormous response with regards to humanitarian aid to Ukraine. So that's who I am, a brief introduction.
So hi everyone. Okay, my name is Tanya, and I'm one of the thousands of Ukrainians who were forced to leave their home last year after the Russian illegal invasion of Ukraine. Actually, I arrived at Edinburgh in April and started to volunteer at the widely known as AUGB, that's the Association of Ukrainians in Great Britain. So yeah, that was the starting point, and I've been volunteering there, and now I'm working with the AUGB as the community coordinator. The AUGB is providing the humanitarian aid, helping displaced people here. We have the sessions, the drop-in sessions with the government and council. So we are doing everything we can in order to support, really, I don't want to say displaced Ukrainians, I would rather say Ukrainian guests here.
Now I think what we'll do, we'll have a bit of a discussion, okay, and then we'll open it to the floor for people who'd like to ask questions about the situation. How does that? Is everybody quite happy with that? Well, let's roll back a little bit to over a year ago when the news first broke about the invasion of Ukraine, and basically what the response was, I think it was incredulity, certainly amongst most Western countries, and certainly the press was practically eating itself with how much information it could get coming out of Ukraine. But I also remember a few days later, and I actually wrote it down at the time, there was the first meeting was on Sunday the 27th of February, which those of us who had any other attachments or who had worked in that field, if we could come to Regent Terrace, where the centre was. So I and a colleague went up, and there was lots of people there, and everybody was very, very keen to help and to contribute what they could, either in terms of what aid they could provide, what money could be given, and also what type of humanitarian work any of us had been involved in. And from there it evolved, and there was a lot of goodwill. And my first reaction, I know from working in humanitarian before, is what happens is you get people who they go out and they get all kinds of things, they collect things that's needed, but there's never a place to put them. So it was to find locations where I had supposed, and I think a lot of us did, there would be an awful lot of influx of gifts coming in and donations and where would they all go. And at that point I actually approached the Royal Scots Club and the Royal Scots Regiment because I knew they actually had places of which things could be stationed at. However, by the time we got to the second meeting, on March 5th, there had been a lot of places access to store because the contributions were quite phenomenal that were coming in. So that was where, at that point, I kind of left it and then started to have badges made called Tartan Against Terror. It was basically Scots Support Ukraine. It was basically saying that Scotland stands up for Ukraine, and as anybody knows about the Scots, we're rather mouthy. We don't take terrorist activity too well. We've been subject to it ourselves in our own history. So we looked at other ways of which we could support the Ukraine, and we went on to do that for quite some time, either monetary donations and any type of aid that was needed. So that brings us round now to people like Tanya, who is clearly going backwards and forwards delivering that aid. So Tanya, what do you remember from those early first days?
Yeah, looking back, like as I mentioned, I arrived in April, but I've heard that the AUGB at the beginning of March became a point of the warehouse. The community center turned into a warehouse where people brought all the help, the boxes, they were packed, sorted, and actually sent to Ukraine from the Royal Terrace. And the first truck that the AUGB sent to Ukraine that was 14 tons of humanitarian aid. After that, we've been offered the warehouse at Newbridge. And actually that's the starting point where we've got like hundreds of volunteers who came there to help, to bring the donation, to sort, or just simply to donate money for the help that is needed. We have the volunteer Edinburgh, with whom we are in tight collaboration, so they've sent their volunteers to the warehouse to help there. When I arrived, I've been staying at a hotel for more than 3 weeks. That was the first words that I've heard, but actually that was a month. And as other Ukrainians at that hotel couldn't just sit and wait, we decided that we need to act and do something in order to help home. So actually we had a group of 15 people, and we were going to the warehouse in Newbridge to sort and pack stuff to send home. This April, the venue where we've got the warehouse, the contract came to the end, and we've been looking for the new place. Happily, I can say that now the last agreement signed, and we just waiting when we will start sending help again. In general, the AUGB sent more than 500 tons of humanitarian aid to Ukraine, and the biggest plus here that we know people on the ground in Ukraine, and we surely know which help is needed, and that this help is going to the right people in the right place.
I certainly know from my own experience and other people's experience that quite often the public have such big hearts and they want to give and they want to donate, but quite often what you get is not what you need. And it's a case of having to sort that all out, and quite often a lot of the time is taken sorting out what is you want to give to the actual reality of what is needed. So from over a year ago to what was both given but not needed for the meantime, but then needed, where are we now with what is needed for Ukraine?
To be very honest here, you are right that people just trying to donate everything they have in order to help. And there were two sides, because we've got the community center and thousands of Ukrainian people who came in order to find help. Most of them left home only with the suitcase, and they came here just with one shoes and one jacket. So actually we had like the center of the help that people can get at the community center, plus stuff that we've sent to Ukraine. Our team at the warehouse, they actually made the list of stuff that is needed now at the points in Ukraine. The stuff that is needed, that's probably portable kitchens, and the last truck that we've sent to Ukraine, that was 2 portable kitchens, because there are cities in Ukraine that not exist anymore. But there are people that can be 30 people staying there because they just don't want to leave their home. And we managed to find that kitchens. They went to Ukraine, and that's the community hub now for people just to prepare food and just warm themselves. We need help for the soldiers, and at that point I'm very disappointed because when the question is going for the help for the civilians, everyone is gladly helping. But when we are talking about the help for the soldiers, everyone's saying, oh no, that's not my point. And that's the reality, that's what's happening. But we should remember that those soldiers, they are giving us a chance, for me personally, to sit here and talk to you and help them. So yeah, the help for the soldiers, both portable kitchens, medical stuff, and for the future, that's what I'm looking for. That's the mine clearance. We will definitely need the help, the huge help, because half of Ukrainian territories, they just mines everywhere, and we will need financial support from the whole world to help to clear our territories.
So basically, from a civilian point of view, things are not too bad. Apart from those who may well, in the next offensive, be fleeing. So there's that to think about.
Yeah, the last 2 tracks that we've sent, they went to the cities where thousands of displaced people from other areas. And we can definitely say that Ukrainian government is doing all possible and impossible things to support these displaced people in Ukraine. But still we need help for those territories that are ruined. And just imagine that there was the city and in 2 weeks, just none.
So basically, we're looking at civilian help and everything that goes with being displaced. And we're also looking at the support for military, who will suffer everything of combat, everything from environmental problems to hot to cold, not enough supplies, not enough medical supplies, and certainly more intervention from probably trauma specialists, trauma nurses, I'm loath to say trauma counselling because that's way down the road, okay? You've got to keep people alive before you can start talking about the experiences afterwards. So it's basically there's 2 emergencies going on here. There's civilian emergency for displacement, and there's emergency supplies for the troops. And given there may be a new offensive, that could be really quite a big thing over the next couple of months. So what can we do to help that?
As you mentioned about the trauma support and the psychological support is really needed now in Ukraine because we are feeling lack of specialists. But this support is also needed here for Ukrainians who arrive. Because in Ukraine, in our culture, it's not common to talk about psychological, about your mental problems. We are taking care of someone, but we will take care of ourselves at the very end. We see now people who are visiting the community center and they're really suffering because they don't speak language. There is lack of interpreters who can really help to interpret the difficult language there. Plus the same happening in Ukraine. There's lots of specialists, they left Ukraine in order to just save their lives. And the soldiers there who left the front line because they were injured, and they really need the help and support. Plus, military, the troops that just, I'm very proud of Ukrainians who are here because they are not just sitting and waiting for the victory, they are just doing everything possible to make that victory happen. We've got the group of Ukrainian volunteers at the warehouse, and actually they now inspire the local people to come. They just made friends already. Some people took those Ukrainians as their host family and just trying to help them with their well-being and mental health. incredible what's happening, honestly. But in case of what you can do, you are doing everything possible and impossible, to be very honest. But we will ask, maybe not just an idea, but the support, the group of specialists who can go to Ukraine or who can accept Ukrainian soldiers with traumas here to help them to recover, like just the exchange of the experience. That will be good.
I mean, you read the media daily, okay? And the media always has its own angle from newspaper reporting. But maybe it needs to be made a little bit clearer into news coverage that actually what we're talking about today is the library's got a big heart. We have to be more specific now about the aid that's coming. Not a general aid, but more specific aid, and perhaps that's a message that needs to get out to the media as well. So there are specifics we're dealing in now, not generalisations. Would you say that's...
There should be the legislation probably of how UK can accept Ukrainian soldiers for the treatment to the hospitals here, because that's the biggest, we got, as far as I know, only 2 soldiers who came here to get the treatment, the right treatment here, because of the visa, because of the different bureaucracy that's happening on the ground. Yeah, talking about news and the newspapers, we can understand that the world is tired of hearing about the war in Europe somewhere, but it's very important to highlight that this country somewhere in Europe is protecting the whole world, and because of these people, the war is not here. We need to do everything possible, and definitely impossible, to help those best people who left or who lose their hand or the leg in the war, protecting us to recover, to get the right help, to get the right medical treatment, plus help us, and that's the biggest issue for myself, to help us with mine clearance. Honestly, I've lost my cousin because of the mine. I know lots of my friends who lost legs and hands just because they were trying to walk when they deoccupied the village. And that's the question number 1 now.
So if you could put an appeal out to the newspapers tomorrow, what would it be? In a few words, what would it be?
It will be few words. I know what to say.
Most editors tell you to say it in 20 words or less, but you can say it.
I will start with accepting Ukrainian soldiers for the treatment.
Okay.
Yeah, that will be the question number 1.
So how that could be facilitated, not just in Scotland, but in the United Kingdom generally. For Scotland specifically.
I believe UK generally.
Okay, right.
It's not a problem. Actually, it's a problem even for Ukrainian soldiers to go for the treatment to Europe. But here it's even more difficult. It's even more difficult for the families to bring their mothers. We have the family who came to the community center. They managed to get the super sponsor scheme visa, but they lose that time frame to fill in the application form for her mom, and not her mom is in Ukraine. She just can't come because of the visa and the bureaucracy and all the other stuff. We are writing the article.
So what about children? Quite often people focus on how traumatized children become in war conflict zones. Now, certain own experiences, children sometimes seem to cope better than the adults round about them because they've no comprehension of the big picture. They don't see it, hear it, and of course they're distressed, yes, they're crying at, but they don't have a mind that can expand to look at all the variables, which can be horrendous from an adult's point of view. So what about the children? How are they managing?
Tough. We've got like on the ship there were more than 800 kids at the very beginning. And we have kids who are visiting the community center on a daily basis. And when we just saw them, they were happy faces. The school is great here, they don't have the homework, that's the biggest plus for them. But you know, when you spend time with each individual, you can understand what they saw. And that, now it started to appear more widely among the community that, especially teenagers, they need special help and treatment. They saw too much for themselves. Just, you can't even imagine seeing the words through kids' eyes, like when the mom is taking you in the night, just horrible. But they were coping, I will be very honest. I know like group of 5 teenagers who visited the community center. They were super brave. They were ready to go to Ukraine even today, just waiting for his mom to get ready. But when I met them, like a couple of months, I saw those sad faces saying that we're tired. Especially the staff with the ship, that they need to change their accommodation because the ship is going to be disembarkated on the 11th of July. And they built the community there, like they are like the big Ukrainian family on the ship, parents supporting each other, kids supporting each other. And now they will be separated like around Scotland, and that is also like making more causes and causes more issues with that teenagers, because they don't know where to find help, how to build the real friendship with the person who doesn't speak your language. In Ukraine, they left everything there, and they came here. Struggling, especially those who can't speak English and their parents are not speaking English. That is the biggest issue. These kids need special support at school. And we already spoke with the representatives of the Scottish government to get the special support, like a teaching assistant, and it should happen probably a year ago. There's lots of Ukrainian specialists who can work at school as a teaching assistant to support those kids, but it's not happening, so we hope it will be in the future to have the teaching assistant at school who can support Ukrainian kids, who can teach them English or just to show something, because at the very beginning, we are taking care of adults thinking how they will cope, but we really forget about kids and we think that they will just understand English easily, they will go to school week 2 and they just fluently speak English, but it's not happening. It's not happening, and these kids are really struggling. That is why at the community center we are planning to start the homework club, but that homework club will be divided into 2 parts. The first part that will be the support with the English as a second language for these kids, and the second part that will be supporting them with the Ukrainian language. Because what's happening now, kids started to lose Ukrainian language, especially those who are visiting the nursery. It's easier for them to just speak fluent English, and we have the families whose granddaughter answering in English when you speak Ukrainian to her. She can understand Ukrainian, but it's easier for her to speak English. And the problem here, we have the Fechters, that's like the Polish organization who's like supporting people's mental health and well-being. And we've got the worker who's visiting the community center every Tuesday, just simply have a chat with Ukrainians and to understand like how are they coping, is everything okay? And they visited the ship several times, because that's like a giant community and surrounding Ukrainians at the one place. And that is really good because, just simply chatting or playing or just drawing, you can understand what are they thinking and if the help is really needed there. The Ukrainian psychologist, unfortunately, they can't work here as the psychologist because of the education and all that stuff like that. And that is the question that I will also raise in the article, is the big capital letters probably, give the right to this specialist to practice and work here. There are lots of talented psychologists, doctors, teachers, but they can't work as the professionals here. Actually, these people, they go to the hotels to do the housekeeping, and that's good. They can't say that that's bad, that's good. They can make money. They are not sitting and waiting again, but they are losing their qualifications and skills, and that is a shame.
Yeah, that always struck me as a problem in the emergency disaster aid where there was no exemption clauses given. You know, it was either it was black and it was white, and the exemption clause like this would be of telling the specialist to come in to work because they're the specialists, they know the culture, they know the people, but because there was this rather probably ignorant view that we could manage things here, we're used to managing, if we can translate that to another culture, another community. Well, it doesn't work like that, as we all know. So that's actually quite a valid point, I think, to get sort of raised at a much higher level. It needs to be coming to the attention of a bigger group of people and probably a bit more influential group of people. So.
I will be very honest that the level of support that Ukrainian people are getting here is really enormous, in a good point of view, of course. People were starting with just the welcome desk at the airport when you arrive, and like the volunteers are greeting you with the widest smile. But I think after more than a year being here, all of us need to understand that these people are traumatized and they need special help, they need additional support. And please do remember that Ukrainians will never ever say that they have a problem. They will be always smiling and saying, I am okay. Just the warmest thank you to everyone for giving incredible support in this dark time to my home, to our home, to Ukraine. And we are here not waiting for the victory, but fighting on our line. That's our front here, to do all the best, to help our families back in Ukraine, to help our soldiers. And as I mentioned before, I'm very proud of my people. I'm proud to be Ukrainian, and thank you from the bottom of all our hearts.
Well, thank you very much, Tanya. And it's actually really good to find out what the reality is, because we all see the BBC or the Times or whatever, but it's different in reality. We all know that about all our own situations. I do hope that the Ukrainian people feel welcomed in Edinburgh. I think Scotland as a whole wants to give that. But obviously circumstances, there are special needs, so hopefully that message will get out to the right people in Harbour. But I have to thank you for giving us that insight. It was very brave of you actually, because you've obviously been personally very affected by the situation, as I'm sure many of you have. It can't be easy. So thank you very much, and thank you to Yvonne as well for curating the Q&A. Does anybody have any questions for Tanya that their curiosity has been piqued, or yes?
I'm in a position where my lodger has departed to a good place, and I've a spare room. I've approached through Edinburgh Council about hosting the Ukrainian. The moment, 10 days later, nothing back yet from the council. So maybe a one-to-one or whatever. What is the best way to get onto the family hosting scheme?
The question will be very simple. Visit the AUGB and we will find family for you just in a second. Yeah, is that I know, and what we've heard, that's the reality, that people apply to become the host family for Ukraine, but they haven't heard from the council for yet. And actually the best way to find the family, because we've got people who have been in touch with us as with the community center, because actually every Tuesday we have the coffee morning and a lot of Ukrainians visited us just to have a chat with each other, but plus to raise the problems that they have. And we are trying to help. So if you will give me your contact details,
Yes.
and we will be in touch and we'll definitely.
In fact, I've got two. It's a two-pronged approach. I first wrote to the council about a Facebook contact who's got an offer from Queen Margaret University and was looking for a sponsor in here. I've since had, through a friend of a Ukrainian, and actually met a 19-year-old boy who's living on the ship and is aware that the ship has got to be vacated. So he's looking at the ship end to find out how to, he's found a home, how he can come to me. But obviously I've not heard back because that was only 2-3 days ago. But at the moment, yes, Edinburgh Council seem to be working at the speed they normally meet.
Well, hopefully this will come to a happy ending then and find a suitable solution. So that's a good starting point, so thanks for that. Anybody else? Anything for Tanya that you'd like to ask while she's here? I mean, I know she's really busy.
It's just curiosity. I grew up in the aftermath of World War II and I'm from the borders, and we had a lot of people from Poland and the Ukraine. Do you know that these people from the Ukraine stay in Scotland from then on?
We've got the VRPs, the visa that Ukrainians got that's only for 3 years. Nobody knows what's going to happen after 3 years. There is no answer to that question that actually I personally raised.
The Polish people all married in, they mixed in and married in. The Ukrainian people went to the Catholic Church and had a certain service. They spoke to us all, but they didn't mix in the same, and I just wondered, did they stay in Scotland? Right.
Like the Ukrainian community is here since 1946, like the AUGB.
Right.
They are parents, they are fathers, they arrived to Scotland because of the Second World War and they couldn't go home. Actually, the Ukrainian community is there, and that's like the heart of the AUGB, and that's just actually the association. There are Ukrainians who arrived here on the workers' visa. So that's the different type of visa, and they actually can probably stay here for 5 years and then extend. But Ukrainians who arrived here because of the war, they are here only for 3 years. That's the answer that we have till now.
I think what you're referring to is the amount of Poles who came here sort of during the war, because there's an awful lot of Poles stationed here and down in Portobello area as well, that worked what they needed to do for the war effort actually from Scotland, because they were sort of part of the bigger mission, and they got leave to stay afterwards, okay? And a lot of them actually married Scottish girls. They met Scottish girls during the war, married them during the war, or just after the war, which then gave them leave to stay as well. This is a slightly different situation.
Yeah, and mainly Ukrainian women arrived here, and they are husbands in Ukraine, so actually all these people here, they are willing to go home.
Thank you. I think at this point I'd just like to thank everybody. Ileana for organising on behalf of the Traditional Dance Forum, which was wonderful, and I received the recording that I saw the ladies before they went in. They were beautiful. I could hear all the singing, and I think the builder has actually responded, which was lovely. I think I took him by surprise, so thank you to him as well. And thank you all today for coming to the Bonnie Fechters. If you want to speak to any of them, if any of you are interested in women's issues, they're an informal group. They have meet for lunch, which when I retire, I'm determined to join them after all these years. And they do other activities. Dr. George will wave her hand, and she does courses at there was the Southside community. It will be again this year, so if you're interested in meeting like-minded people, as they say, I think it's a new course this year that she'll be delivering, so you can never stop learning, and I'm sure that's open to everyone. So find out a bit about Scottish history as well. So I am delighted, and it's been lovely having you. So thank you very much, and hopefully we will be able to do more in the future. So thank you very much, and that's all I can say from Edinburgh Libraries, I think. So thank you.